Hi, everyone. David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at one of the final round Kentucky Derby preps on Saturday at Turfway Park. The feature race is the Grade 3 Jeff Ruby Stakes, going 9 furlongs on the synthetic surface. A full field signed on, 12 runners with one also eligible. Before we get to the handicapping, do note that we've got this Road to the Derby package going on now. If you're going to be handicapping these Derby preps each Saturday, right on up until Oaks and Derby, then just buy all these PPs as a package, full cards, 10 of them. You get them as 37% off if you buy them all as part of the Road to the Derby package. As you also receive clock reports, betting strategies for Oaks and Derby. Find out more information at shop.drf.com. Mike, we talked about the Louisiana Derby, did a video on that a little bit earlier. That's a wide open race. This one might be even more difficult to figure out because you've got horses making surface switches and you don't really have a standout coming in here. I suppose that the number 9 Poster could be vying for favoritism. I haven't yet seen the morning line for this race, but he does have a bit of a reputation from his 2-year-old season. But he's another one that's trying the surface for the first time.
Yeah, that to me, that was the major issue with the race, because I do think there are some talented horses in here, but you just have so many surface switchers, and it's obviously going to come into play who handles the all weather and who doesn't. I actually think Poster's a pretty nice horse, but we'll see how he's never run on this surface before, so we'll see how he handles it.
Let's check out the Timeform US Pace Projector to get a sense of how this field might sort itself out heading into that clubhouse turn. And Mike, I think the 2 horses that are shown first and second on this Pace Projector are the right 2 that are going to be forward. The number 8 Innovator, really his only chance is to get in front of this field and just hope that he handles the new surface. And the number 2 Charlie's to Blame is also shown a lot of early speed on the turf. So I get the fast pace flag showing up because of those 2 horses participating. But once you get past those 2, there aren't too many others in this field that necessarily need to be forward to have their best chance.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know that they'll be flying up there, but I agree with you. I think they're probably right that Innovator, if they're going to run him in this race, they just got to try to make the front and see what happens. And then if the pace is fast, then I guess the number 3 California Burrito could be one of the favorites in here, David, and he's won 2 races in a row, wire to wire. If they do go fast in here, we'll see if that affects him.
Yeah, and California Burrito's positioning on the pace projector is due to the fact that he was in front in some very slow-paced races in his last couple of starts. Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1 calling card. And Mike, it feels like this horse's connections are just shopping for the right kind of race to pick up some Derby points because they've scratched him out of a couple of preps recently. He was entered in the John Battaglia, scratched from that race. They ran him in the Gotham, then they entered in the Virginia Derby last week, scratched from that race. Now they've entered him in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. We'll see if he runs here. Just a horse who's trying to get back to that 87 buyer that he earned when he broke his maiden by 17 lengths against New York Breds. But since then, he just hasn't looked like he's quite this quality.
Yeah, haven't liked any of his races since the impressive maiden win first time out there. They did begin his career on the grass. I guess he ran okay in those races. So maybe he's a versatile type and he'll handle this surface switch. And he did get a nice inside draw for this race, David. I had real trouble liking him in this spot, but the surface switch, I guess, makes him a wild card if nothing else.
Yeah, and he did have one workout on the synthetic surface back in February. I did catch a video of that workout, and it was not pretty. So we'll see if he does better in the afternoon. The number 2 is Charlie's to Blame, a horse who was trying the surface for the first time, another one of those. And he's certainly shown his prowess on the turf, Mike. And we'll take a look at the most recent of his turf victories when he won the Kitten's Joy at Gulfstream Park. He had broken his maiden at Del Mar prior to this, going the mile distance. I was very impressive in that victory, beating a good field in December of last year and came back off the 2-month layoff here. And you could see he gets a little bit tired at the very end of this race, but I still think runs well to beat a group of horses that I think had some talent behind him. Now he's stretching out to the 9 furlongs though and trying the synthetic for the first time. I don't care about the surface switch so much. I do wonder if more distance is really going to help this horse improve.
There's probably enough working against him that you want to be careful taking him at a short price in here if he does go off at a short price. He's pretty good, though. All 3 of his turf races in particular are really good performances. I agree wholeheartedly with your take last time. Even though he almost got caught, I still thought he ran really, really well in there. I feel like the sprint start 3 starts back at least shows that he doesn't have to be right on the lead to be effective because he ran well that day, even though he didn't win. I don't know. I'm probably not betting him if he's one of the favorites in this race, David, but I think he can win this race.
In handicapping this Jeff Ruby, one of the things you have to decide is what to do with the horses coming out of the John Battaglia Memorial. And the winner of that race, the number 3 California Burrito, is up next and caused a minor upset that day. He went off at 7-2, got to the front end, secured the lead, and was able to slow down the pace just enough to hold on through the late stages. Did get to drifting through the stretch, was kind of hurting out his foe, but they kept some distance between them, so no reason for the stewards to take a look at it. And he was able to hold on, Mike. The race got a 92 buyer, and I suppose that makes him one of the horses to beat in here. But I guess it depends if you think the visual matches the speed figure that was assigned to it.
Yeah, I don't think it does. Listen, first of all, I'll just go right off the top. I feel like I don't want any of the 3 horses coming out of the local prep for the race at Battaglia. If I do want one, I probably want the runner-up Baby Max. But I'm not sure I want any of these horses. You know, he has one really important thing going for him, does California Burrito. He likes this surface, and maybe some of these other horses will not like it, but he's not getting the trip that he got last time in here. He's not getting the trip that he got 2 starts back when he posted that big win in here. And he's probably not going to be some kind of, super interesting price.
Yeah, that's the thing with him. His form is exposed off the last victory, and he's gotten perfect trips in the last 2 races. So we'll see if he can be as fortunate here. The number 4, Final Gambit, is another horse that has handled this Tapeta surface, but he's done it against Maiden Company, and now he's stepping way up in class. I will say, Mike, I'm sure you went back to watch the replay of his last race. He was pretty impressive coming from way far back in the pack to get the job done. Just not sure what he was beating.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just a bad field. He was pretty impressive winning that race. 2 starts back, they sort of put him up closer. He did a lot of chasing in there. I don't know, David, if you noticed this. Even though those last 2 races in particular, he seems like he's sort of coming through. He's always like gawking at the stands through the stretch. I think he's still kind of a really green kind of a horse, and maybe this is a spot where he could just really jump forward, but he better jump forward by a lot. And because it's Juddmonte and Brad Cox, he's probably not going to be like a huge price, and I would need a huge price.
Yeah, that's the key point. He's supposed to be 20-1 or greater based on the races he's running. He might not be for those connections. The number 5 is Flying Mohawk, a horse who showed some talent during his 2-year-old season, running exclusively on the turf and caught some tough fields along the way. They tried him in the Pilgrim as a maiden, but as soon as they dropped back into Maiden Company, he delivered an impressive victory at Churchill Downs 2 back in October, and then came off the layoff last time at Fairgrounds, and he got a very good trip, Mike, but I thought he beat a pretty good horse in States Rights to get the job done. That's spot and was going away at the end. I think this horse has real talent, and you go through his pedigree by Caraconti out of a Twirling Candy mare. That says to me that synthetic should be just fine.
Yeah, he's another one. I feel like he could handle the surface, which I just really like the way he's progressed right from the start. Every race that they've sent him out there, he's gotten a little bit better. Really impressive, I thought, in the last 2 wins that are separated by a little bit of a layoff. I just thought he was a contender in this race, and maybe he's one of the horses who doesn't take a ton of money.
And I do like the trainer Whit Beckman reaches out to a jockey that's been riding a Turfway and has a lot of experience over this track. Hopefully that's a positive for the number 5 Flying Mohawk. The number 6 Baby Max is the horse that was a runner-up to California Burrito in the John Battaglia Memorial, the local prep for this that we discussed earlier. And Mike, this horse got a slightly wider trip, but was also attending that relatively slow pace and just could never really get by California Burrito. Like I said, getting herded out through the stretch a little bit. You mentioned maybe liking this horse a little bit more. They're putting the blinkers on here, so we'll see if he can finish off the race a little better.
Yeah, maybe he can. I mean, he's another one. Overall, his form on the synthetic is fine, and maybe that's an advantage for him. I'm trying to avoid the Battaglia horses. Again, if I was going to take one, I'd take this horse just because he sort of was forced into that 3 wide trip. You're right to point out that he was just right up close and couldn't get by California Burrito. And even though he was getting sort of carried out late, I never got the feeling that this horse was going to get the job done in there.
The number 7, Jocoso, is another one that's trying the surface for the first time, but at least he's shown that he can run well on turf as well as on dirt. He did that one time in the Iroquois where he was 3rd behind Jonathan's Way, but primarily he showed himself to be a horse with a bit of a turf preference. And Mike, I like a few of his turf races, ran well in his maiden victory at Ellis Park last summer, and then that allowance race 2 back, rallied from off the pace to get the job done, not earning much of a speed figure, but I thought he actually won comfortably that day. The Risen Star last time off the layoff, it was a disaster, and maybe you could use that as evidence that he hasn't really stepped forward given the fact that he handled dirt as a 2-year-old, but he's an intriguing one trying the surface for the first time.
Yeah, he is. I feel like he's more of a turf horse anyway, even though he did run pretty well in that Iroquois last year. I just feel like I didn't want to be too hard on him for the Risen Star, which was just a really fast race, and that just might not be his surface preference. really like all of his turf races. David, you've already sort of laid it out, so I won't go, on and on about it. That allowance win though at the end of last year, that's a really good performance. They weren't going that fast in front of him. He had to wait for room, and once he got it, he really finished.
Another horse trying the surface for the first time is the number 8 Innovator. He's got a ton of early speed. He was the one that was shown leading on the pace projector earlier. And Mike, he was chasing a very fast pace in the Rebel last time, could not sustain it. He was one of the first to give way in that spot and really was unable to finish off that mile on the 16th of hair. He was more successful too back in the Lecomte. I have mixed feelings about how good of a race the Lecomte really was, because I think we've seen horses go in both directions coming out of it, both up and down. He just has some real distance questions to answer, and I don't know if he's supposed to be better on the synthetic surface.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't really like any of his races enough to want to bet him in here. I thought he ran okay in the Lecomte, 2 starts back, but not great. And boy, was he bad in the Rebel last time, fast pace or not. I guess we'll see what we get. The surface switch obviously maybe wants you to leave him open a little bit. He does have a versatile pedigree, if nothing else, but I just couldn't make this horse.
The number 9 is Poster, a horse who did nothing wrong during his 2-year-old season, won twice on the turf, and then Owen Hardy showed some confidence to try the dirt in a pretty tough spot, the Grade 2 Remsen. We'll take a look at the replay of the stretch run of that race, and he traveled well into the race, took it over at the top of the stretch, and is able to just hold off a late charge from Aviator Guy in the late stages. Mike, in retrospect, I don't think this is one of the strongest editions of the Remsen that we've ever seen, but this horse came off the layoff last time in the Sam F. Davis, and you could say that he was the only horse to really make up ground in a race that was mostly dominated towards the front end. So I think this horse has at least been progressing a little bit from start to start, and given the surface versatility that he's shown up until this point, synthetic isn't supposed to be a problem.
Yeah, I looked at him the exact same way. Credit where credit's due. They switched to dirt for 2 pretty tough races for his last 2 starts. He ran fine both times. I don't love his performance in either of those races, but he ran fine. And I feel like I could make the argument that even though his figures are lower in the turf races, he was better on that surface. Those are 2 really impressive wins. Maybe he handles the surface switch.
The number 10 is Maximum Promise, another horse coming out of that local prep, the John Battaglia Memorial. And Mike, we talked about how that race was mostly dominated towards the front end. They didn't go that fast up front. California Burrito able to wire the field. Maximum Promise was really the only horse that passed a ton of horses to get up for third. He was towards the back of the pack early, had to make a wide run, and at least shown that he handled the synthetic surface to complete the trifecta in there. I still am waiting for him to take that step forward, though, that he suggested might be within his capabilities based on the way he broke his maiden at Ellis Park last summer.
Yeah, maybe I'm not giving this horse enough credit for, trying to make up ground from last in the Battaglia last time. That's certainly one way to look at that race, is that he just had no chance being as far back as he was early. And, listen, he's run well on dirt. His turf debut actually wasn't that bad a performance, making up ground behind a wire-to-wire winner. So I don't know. Maybe I just overlooked him a little bit, and he's a really a strong contender in this race, but I sort of preferred other horses.
The number 11 is Curvino, one of the more experienced members of this field, another one trying the synthetic surface for the first time. He did run well without winning on the turf as a 2-year-old, and since then has been competing primarily on the dirt. I just don't really like any of his races that much, Mike, and I feel like he's stepping way up in class here.
Yeah, there's no way that I could bet him off of what he's done on turf or dirt. Maybe he'll be a totally different horse on the surface.
And then rounding out the main body of the field is the number 12. He's Not Joking, a horse who has certainly handled synthetic in the past. He did so when he won the Gray Stakes at the end of his 2-year-old season up in Canada and was pretty impressive that day. And that was his only time going 2 turns on a synthetic surface. Since then, Mike, 2 disastrous performances on the dirt, but maybe he just doesn't like the dirt track.
Yeah, maybe he's just not a dirt horse. I could easily look at this horse that way. I just thought he was an easy horse to like in here, David. His synthetic races at Woodbine are all good. Every one of those races is a good performance. He earned an 84 buyer at the end of his 2-year-old campaign. It's the last time he was on this surface, and now they finally switch him back.
And the number 13, Candytown, a maiden entered in this race, would need 1 scratch to draw into the field. He would be a big price either way. Mike, let's throw up our picks for this race. And you're going to go with the number 7, Jocosa, one of those horses that is trying the turf, or the synthetic, I should say, for the first time, but has shown ability on turf.
Yeah, we'll see if he handles it. I like his turf form. It gives me hope. I just don't think he's a dirt horse. It gives me hope that maybe he'll handle this surface, which I think he's pretty talented. And I just thought, because he hasn't really run a fast race, that maybe I'd get a fair price on him. And I didn't want to overlook He's Not Joking off of 2 bad dirt races, because I think he's better on the surface.
Yeah, I kind of thought the number 9 Poster was the horse to beat. I got the sense I like him a little bit more than you do. Just probably wasn't going to get much of a price on him. So I kind of went in the same direction as you, just putting a different horse on top in the number 5, Flying Mohawk, who has a similar profile to Jocoso, a horse that's run really well on the turf, tried the synthetic for the first time, but certainly has pedigree to do it for a dangerous barn. So 7-12-2-4 for Mike and 5-9-7-2 for me in the Grade 3 Jeff Ruby Stakes on Saturday at Turfway Park. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.